If I could just give a few introductory remarks. This is clearly a situation where we're dealing with apples and oranges, and I'm going to try to see if I can connect them at all. And with regard to children's health, the way we assess their exposure to lead is looking at the lead in their blood. And any blood lead above 5 today is considered a cause for concern. The average blood lead for children in the U.S. is something less than 2 now. So it's a fairly small increment above the average. Water people talk in a language totally different, which we as physicians don't understand. They talk about parts per billion. We don't know parts per billion, but we do know, those of us with a little knowledge, that you can convert parts per billion in dealing with a liquid like this to micrograms per liter. So I already said a blood lead above 5 micrograms per 100 mils or 5 micrograms per deciliter is abnormal for a child. They're saying in water we don't want more than 15 micrograms per liter. So you can begin to connect, if you use micrograms rather than parts per billion, what might happen with a child. Now, you just heard one way to look at what 1 part in a billion is. If we convert it to our micrograms per liter, one of the comparisons has been used is if you put 1 drop of ink into a large tanker truck, that's 1 part per billion. The one I use a lot is if you take a single adult aspirin and and you divide it into 325,000 pieces, each one of those pieces is 1 microgram. So what we're really talking about is very, very small amounts of lead can be damaging to children. Now, if you turn this on its head and you say, well, if you have lead above the standard you just heard about of 15 parts per billion or 15 micrograms per liter, how much of that does a child need to drink to raise their blood lead above 5 micrograms per deciliter? So now we're totally metric. Micrograms per deciliter and micrograms per liter. And if you do the calculation, it would require something like, at that 15 micrograms per liter, 2 gallons of water at that level per day for several weeks to get a child's blood lead up near that 5. And that would be assuming that all the water is at that level. And you just heard that we're looking at first draw, and once you do it, it goes down. So my bottom line in all of this is that even with the few positive findings that have occurred, even if they hadn't been corrected, it'd be extraordinarily difficult for a child to be poisoned to a level of concern. On the other hand, I feel very strongly that where exceedances are observed, they should be corrected. And I think this is the point here. There's not a great risk to children, our children, in what's been found, but it's entirely appropriate to correct the findings. It's really as simple as that. Another question that you may ask, but I'll go ahead and jump on, is children at this blood lead of 5 I talked about never have symptoms from the lead that could be observed by a parent or a physician. And this is the reason why we test the blood lead in every child in the U.S. if we're good pediatricians, and we all are, right? We're all good pediatricians. At age 1 and age 2, because that's the age at which children tend to have their highest blood lead levels. So no symptoms is important. Screening is important. But in this setting, probably there would be few, if any, children that actually need to be tested for their lead levels based on the findings I've seen so far. And that's obviously subject to revision if there are different findings, higher levels, for instance, or evidence a given child is getting all of their liquid from one of the more heavily contaminated fixtures, which hadn't already been corrected. Mm-hmm. So it's, I feel fairly comfortable that our kids are okay. I feel happy that the Charleston County School District has done the testing. And I can't in any way certify how well they've corrected the hazards, but I suspect they have.